when I started my coaching career, I found very early on that I was being the head coach. I didn't enjoy the leadership style I was around. And so it was a huge gut punch and a huge reflection, to me. And I didn't have the best relationships. I only had good relationships with our good players. And you want to have good relationships with all your players. It doesn't matter if he's not playing a minute. And so it was a huge wake up call to me.
Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. Today we're joined by the head men's basketball coach at Clarendon College, Blake Cochran. Coach Cochran is in his 9th year of coaching, 4th as a head coach. In his 2 years at Fort Scott Community College, he led them to 2 of the program's top 5 seasons in school history. The 23-24 season was the best season in 72 years with a KJCCC championship appearance, a 95% graduation rate, and Coach Cochran was selected to coach in the NJCAA All-Star Game. Before Fort Scott, he held coaching roles at Northwestern State University, Southwestern Assemblies of God University, and his alma mater, McMurray University. In his first year at Clarendon, Coach Cochran led the Bulldogs to wins against the preseason number 1 and number 2 teams in the country. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at JAMODI Podcast.
Welcome to the Ballology app Ultimate Demo. Trusted by leaders in the game. Ballology is a player development platform built for coaches and players alike. You can expect live shot tracking, workout libraries, and AI insights. You can easily chart team shooting drills in practice or in training sessions. Track all of those shots using an iPhone or an Android device in real time. You can view your team's performance through a video archive or by using our shot charts. After every shooting workout, take a look at your breakdown by viewing your percentages and your shot locations. Let's take a deeper look to learn how to make the most out of the Ballology app. Let's see how you measure up in the Ballology Skills Assessment, where you can test your shooting skills versus other shooters worldwide. Navigate to Ballology AI, where you can ask any question to get answers in real time for smarter training.
Make that footwork a little more sharp.
Coaches or players can create custom workouts in just minutes. Hit your on-court skills or basketball IQ or even strength and conditioning. It can be done on the Ballology app. Compete with everything you do on the Ballology app through our workout leaderboards. Elevate your game with the Ballology app. Download it for free today.
Coach, I want to thank you so much for coming on Talking Hoops with me, giving up your time. It is always fun to get to connect with different coaches from different areas, and just really appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to be on, and I listen to your podcast a lot, even in the mornings when I'm walking, and it gives me a good way to start my day, especially you're just trying to wake up and enjoy the day.
You're the one person that's been listening to this thing over. No, that's awesome, man. I am humbled anytime I hear that people listen to it, especially a coach like you, and so glad that you do, and I hope other guys. I get to learn so much from these coaches. It's kind of like there's a little bit of a selfish motivation here. Is I want to hold you captive for however long I can and ask you questions about things that I'm really interested in. But I think beyond X's and O's, I feel like this is kind of the stuff that like our job is really about,
Yeah. No, I agree. And I'm always trying to learn, and, you've had a great pedigree and have a lot of respect for you. So I'm honored to be on here and excited to hear stuff on your end, especially as well.
If I start talking too long, I'm a big Friends fan. And they had, I guess when Joey was doing an interview one time, they had Chandler sitting right behind him with a pen, just ready to click it if he started to like say things too long or anything. But I'll try not to ramble. I appreciate your kind words. Tell me a little bit about how this fall has been for you.
I couldn't be happier with the direction it's going right now. Like, love our guys. They're leading each other. Like, they're even doing Bible studies that they chose to do on their own. And when I heard they wanted to do that, I was pumped up. Practice
That's a good sign, right? Yeah.
It is. It's been amazing. We had our conference tour day, and We had a lot of Division Ones, very, very complimentary of what we were doing player wise and practice wise. So it's been a blast so far.
And I gotta tell you, I love hearing when I get to ask that question at the beginning of these talks, or even at TABC talking to a coach. I feel like you can tell pretty quick from somebody like really how it's going. You can sense it, or you can hear it in their voice, or maybe when you see them in their face. And man, I just the way that you started that out with how good it is going, I really believe that. And is that something that you have great players, no doubt, high character, and they're doing great things, but is that something that you felt pretty much every place you've been and you've been able to create that?
Yeah, I think you can just feel it. Like when you walk into practice, you walk in the locker room, you can just tell when people are locked in and they're talking about what they need to get better at very early on. And, within a week, people were already telling each other what they needed to do. Some of the really good programs I've been a part of, like the team at Fort Scott, we had a top 3 team in school history at Fort Scott. You knew immediately that that team was going to be amazing. When I was at Sagu and Waxahachie, we won conference championship. That team was so fun to be around every day in practice. And, you get that feeling right now, which is fun.
I don't think that that's common. I think the feeling that most coaches probably walk into is some bought in, some locked in, and then others that you're still working with trying to get there. What did you do to create that environment that players wanted to be, like you said, locked in, and then they have the freedom or they feel comfortable enough to challenge each other? How did you create that environment?
Yeah, I think during the recruiting process, it was more than just, hey, coach, I'm committed to Clarendon. It was me calling them, every couple weeks and just trying to talk to them and talk about life. And we do the same thing here when they get on campus. We have individual workouts, but we also, like in the locker room, the schedule in there, it says like these 4 players are just talking to me or my assistant. And so I think that's just as important as them going and working out for an hour and a half, because if they don't trust you or they don't feel like you have their best interest, then it's going to be a long year. And so, yes, we recruited the guys we wanted to, and I feel like we did a very good job doing our due diligence, talking to other coaches and even their parents and stuff. But we've created the environment we've wanted to, and it started with stuff like that.
I love the moment you said that on the board, it's scheduled with 4 names. That just shows like a level of intentionality that goes beyond, I hope I have good relationships with my players. You're guaranteeing it, or at least giving it a good fighting shot by making that one-on-one time. And I want to just encourage high school coaches, and I'm in a different role now than I was 6 months ago, where at my previous school, I had so much time to sit around because I was doing study halls and off periods all day and to do all these things. I felt I'm getting back into public school now at Midway. I've felt how sped up everything is. When you have your athletics, then maybe an off period, but then you have classes that you have to teach. I can see how easy it is for things like one-on-one meetings to just go out the window. We just don't have time. I have too many other things, but that's been a struggle. But I'm thankful that some of the habits that I had at Faith, like you talked about, scheduling those one-on-ones, we can't create the relationships we want without time. And I don't think that's just basketball. I think that's life.
That's very true. I struggled with it last year. Last year was my first year at Clarendon. I took over pretty late out, a couple months, and we didn't have the best season. And I just looked back, like we just went from having a top 3 season at my previous school, and then now this is the worst season I've had as a head coach. Like, what was a big thing? And a big part of it was relationships. I felt like I was just so basketball oriented that I didn't connect with the players as much. And I even talked to my mom and dad about that, and they were like, I couldn't agree with you more. Like, that you have to build, it doesn't matter what team, it doesn't matter how good they are, you've got to build relationships with them. And you can already see a difference this year.
And sometimes you're going to have those players that they love the one-on-one time. They can't wait for their meeting. And then you're going to have others you can tell this is not comfortable for them. So whether they're excited about it or you feel like we're forcing them to do it, it's just one of those necessary things that it seems like you've just really figured out.
Yeah, and I feel like there's another side too. Like on my desk, I have these journals, and my wife actually came. She said they did this when she played in college, and it's called a positivity journal. And so in study hall, we bought journals, we gave it to them, and I put 2 questions on the board, and they had to write a page, and then we collected them. And me and my assistant wrote a paragraph in there to them. And so we give those back to them. Not only do we read it, but we get to let them know, like, hey, I'm glad you're here at Clarendon. Like, I love you. You're doing an amazing job. And I think that helps too, because there are players, like you're saying, that don't enjoy coming, talking one-on-one, but some of them can write and express themselves better on that way. So I think doing it both ways kind of touches all players collectively.
Coach, that's great. I don't think I've ever thought about different ways of learning or expressing themselves with culture or standards. I've thought about how players learn on the floor. Some like to see it, some like to hear it, and some like to do it. And so I think a pretty good workout or anytime you're installing something new, a good way to do it is try to involve those three ways. Write it up there or watch some quick film, let them listen to you move and then have them do it. But I think you're hitting that same thing almost with the relationship piece. I don't think I ever let guys sit and write their feelings down. And then I love the idea of adding into that positivity journals, 2 questions. Do you do that all throughout the year, or how do the journals keep kind of showing back up?
Right. So we'll do it once a week, and then,
Okay.
we'll pick 2 questions, and then, probably once a month, we're going to allow them to pick the questions themselves, so they have some ownership and give them some leadership with it as well.
How long does that take?
We did it yesterday, and it took a total of 30 minutes. So we did
Right.
half study hall, they worked, and then the other half they got it out, and it took 30 minutes from me explaining the questions and what we were looking for. And some of them, coach, I'm done, and there's 2 sentences. I'm like, hey, we're not doing that. So yeah, it takes about 30 minutes, and it's not long at all. And then I wrote in 10 of the journals. It took me about an hour, and I think that hour is going to go a long way more than me sitting here watching some more film or something.
Doubt. And I wrote down that 30 minutes because I think if you were to ask any coach, hey, do you have 30 minutes a week? If I told you, hey, if you spend these 30 minutes a week, your players, the relationships you have with them, they have in each other, their buying to the program will just go up in a big way. Are you interested in that? Would you do that? I think every coach would say yes, but you're sitting there on a Sunday and you're putting your weekly plan together. Man, you got ball handling. You want to install a little bit of flow, but you got some shooting games that you got to get in and things like that, and live play and small sided games. All of a sudden, coach, that 30 minutes is just gone. But it's kind of like TJ Rosine helped me. I learned his daily little mantras or things that he does, like Tough Tuesday. So we spend 3 to 4 minutes a day, them with a partner, and they share just something tough in their life. And then I would bring the guys in. I would just ask them, hey, is that a waste of time? Or should we just go to basketball? And again and again and again, they're like, oh, no, coach, that's not a waste of time. Just to your point, I think we give up 30 minutes a week to create these relationships time and time again.
Yeah. No, I love that. I might steal that as well. I think that's, I mean, you always got time for 5 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes. And yeah, it's great.
I love that. You mentioned something a little bit ago about going from an ultra successful season to a tougher one. Now, coming in late, that's always going to be challenging, especially with today's college climate of players and who's still available and can we field the team, who's left. And but how did your confidence, how did it affect your confidence throughout that year? And what did you do to, almost like we have to tell players to do, to protect your confidence?
Right. It was such a season of highs and lows. We got up to 17 in the country. We were beating the team that won the national championship, Trinity Valley, for 30 minutes. And then our first conference game, one of our guys before that game, the player, I said, hey, you're playing analytically, you're one of our highest players offensively and defensively. When you're tired, you tell me, that's when you're getting your rest. He goes out first conference game. And then the leading rebounder in the conference breaks his wrist. And so like by the end of the conference season, I thought I had it all figured out. And I thought I was going to come in the best conference in the country, junior college wise, and we're going to win and we're going to go to Hutch and we're going to do all this stuff. But that wasn't the case. And so I feel like I figured out offensively and defensively a little bit more. I just unfolded some layers that have truly helped us so far to start our season that I'm thankful that I went through as a coach. And you can either look at it positively or you can look at it negatively. And I feel like me and my assistant truly try to dive in and figure out what we could have done better, and then how can we adapt things for the next season. And we even put those things in the second half of conference. And so when we started practicing early on, we already started statting all that stuff with all the players, showing them film and everything. And so it was a huge benefit for me as a coach, and I couldn't be more thankful.
Your approach to that, I think, is really impressive and something that I need to remember from season to season. I think nothing humbles you more than like losing, but also when those injuries happen and when we know that it's players, we know that. But then we don't always we don't always realize it or see it until a couple of our best go down and you're like, oh, wow, we're different. We're not the same. But I thought it was a great example of you could fake it in those moments when things are tough and just try to say, hey guys, we're still moving along in a good direction and try to stay positive, which I agree with that. Or you can face it. And I think it's good for our players to face it instead of faking it. But I think as coaches, we need to do that too. We need to face it when times are tough. And instead of making excuses like you did, pivot. And I think, like you said, man, I think that's when we get better. And it's just incredible that you're able to do that. How did the rest of it turn out after you made the change?
Yeah, so we ended up beating the preseason number 1 and 2 teams in the country. But that doesn't mean we didn't get beat bad a couple games too. But, we just statted a lot of different stuff. Like, hey, in the first half, we only got like 3 or 4 paint touch passes. Like, we're just not moving the basketball. We had like another stat offensively is field goal attempts with 3 to 5 people on us. And so that showed a lot of different stuff. And then I was talking to Liberty University the other day, and we were talking about analytics, and we even go deeper into the paint touches. Like we have level 1, level 2, level 3. So like if you touch the elbow, that's level 1. Those kickouts, those are kind of easy closeouts,
Or
but
closeouts.
yeah. And if you get level 3, I mean, those are high percentage shots. So then we started looking at all that stuff, and we were really able to get everybody on the same page, even though we were down some of our best players. If we do this more, we get more of these. Doesn't matter who we play, we can beat anybody. And it showed that we beat South Plains and Howard, and we were down pretty bad.
Excuse me, the field goals attempted with 3 to 5 people. Can you go a little bit deeper into that?
Yes, sir. So say I pump fake and I drive and I get 3 people to come help. Someone's wide open. And so if you shoot that shot, that's a negative on our statistics. And so you want to get a level 3 paint touch from that and a kick out and a pass. And those are extremely high positive points for our analytics system that we use. And so it shows who's playing together. It shows who's not getting off the ball very much. So then the players kind of chime in too, and they'll tell each other, hey, you've got to get off the basketball. We get a paint touch, kick out, and someone goes and closes out. You typically have a one more. Like in practice and film, we run big time if they don't make that extra one more.
That's a good reminder right there. It's like what Coach Huggins used to say. One of my buddies at a TABC clinic said, Coach, how do you get your guys to play so hard at West Virginia? And he just said, treadmill. One word, treadmill. I think a challenge always is we want players to create for themselves, but then we also want them to create for others. So you kind of have both of those tracks going on at the same time. I think that's a great way to show that somebody is not creating for others when they draw that much attention to themselves, when they have that much gravity. How do you create that culture or system where guys are just as excited to create for another as they are to create for themselves?
Yeah. There's 2 things that really we go into, and it is hard sometimes constantly asking, our point guards like, hey, you're coming off ball screen, get in the paint and get kickouts. So I always find clips that show them getting back the basketball and then scoring or hitting a three. And it happens a lot more than you would think if someone just was trying to implement this, because you do get a lot of paint touch kickouts and then one more is, and it typically will go back to that player that passed it. And so that gets super highlighted when we watch film.
Great point right there is highlighting the things that you want to see, because I think how do we get them to trust what we're saying? You could tell that player, hey, I believe it'll come back to you. Just keep trusting what we're doing. Keep trusting. But show him, literally bring him in and say, listen, this is what we're talking about. You just did it. And then you popped off or the ball came back to you. I think sometimes not that they intentionally have selective amnesia with what they're thinking about. It's, you played. You don't see everything. The same way as a coach, you don't see everything correctly. As a player, sometimes your vision and how you feel is very limited. So for you to be able to not just tell them, but show them, I think that's big. And that could go for anything that we're talking about on the floor, right?
Yeah, I'm absolutely. And, it's their shooting percentages go up too. I mean, you just look like a better basketball player. Your assist turnover ratio. I mean, and it's hard at a junior college because everyone's trying to get out. We get a lot of transfers. We get a
Man,
lot
good
of
point.
guys that can qualify and go Division I, Division II NAI after 1 year. And so I don't know if we didn't show them the analytic system and the film and constantly trying to help them and teach them. I feel like if I was just on the court preaching it, I feel like I would be fighting a never-ending battle with some players. And so I think you have to do it multiple ways, and it's going to help. Like you said, you got to teach it, you got to draw it, you can show them multiple ways. And so we try to do it even with our offense and analytics so that everybody understands it. We'll print out the analytics stuff too and give it to them. I'll show it before film. I'll put it in the locker room. Like, they're seeing it multiple times. And so they get
Can't
highlighted big
escape it.
time.
Can't
Yeah.
escape it. And then I would imagine too, you're not just highlighting or bringing up like those 3 to 5s, right? When 3 or 5 people, but also I think a good strategy, and it's kind of what was the Seahawks coach? He's there for a long time.
Pete Carroll.
Yeah, yeah. What Pete Carroll would do is after a win or a loss, they'd come back in and there's highlights going. I think us really searching for it. In my mind, I don't know if you're the same way. In my mind, when I'm in the gym, it's just like programmed to look for negative. Who's not bringing spirit? Who's not hustling? Who has the wrong stuff on today? Who still has their earrings in? Who's not after they miss a shot? Who's drooping? But PGC helped me, and I think we need to change our lens and look for the good things that are happening and celebrate that, and then hope that that starts to rub off. Because I think naturally players are pleasers. I don't know about you. I've rarely seen he's a punk. He wants nothing to do with this. There's usually something deeper there. In your one-on-one meetings, you probably get to it, or in their journal writing, you get to it. But I think if we're celebrating those things that are good, then it's probably going to rub off. More is caught than taught anyway. And I think that's a good way.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point with what you said, because coaches, it's very easy, like after watching film or you lose a game or you win a game barely that you feel like you should have done better on. It's so easy to come in there negative, 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 but then you want them to be positive and being energetic and high five. I catch myself doing it too. Like, I feel like yesterday we didn't play very good. And I came in there and I'm teaching them, even though I'm frustrated, I had to remind them, like, I'm not just being this way to be this way. Like, I'm trying to teach you guys. There are positivities from this. Y'all need to see them, but we got to fix this stuff too. And so I couldn't agree with you more.
And I love that. I immediately thought of Will Ferrell in Old School when he comes into the locker room in his whitey tighties and they're in that competition and he's yelling. Luke Wilson's character is saying it really calmly, like, "Hey guys, we're on the right track. Let's just keep focusing. We got this." And Will Ferrell grabs a chair and starts saying, "We've come too far. We can't leave or lose our composure." And he's screaming and yelling. I thought to myself, how often am I that? I come into a timeout, calm down. What are you? And I am just log. What I'm saying is completely the opposite of what I'm showing. And that's when my beautiful bride comes to me after the game and goes, "Your face," when you were talking to them. but we whatever we want them to be doing. If we're not, I just think that message is pretty hollow, right?
Yeah, man, there's a lot of, it's just hard because you want them to be a certain way, but then you have to look at yourself as a coach too. And I catch myself more that I'm older, when I was very young in the business, I just, why aren't they doing what I'm saying? I don't understand it. They just need
Yeah.
to listen to me. It's so much more than that. And what our like for our team goal is, how can you get your teammates to love you? And I even have that for myself. Like, how can I get this player or the whole team, how can I get them to love me? If I'm asking the team to love each other and find a way to be loved by each other, I have to have that same standard for myself.
Great question. What are other ways as a coach that you feel like you can, obviously, I get the teammates loving each other, but that going from you to them, them to you?
Yeah, I try to be a very transparent person. I try, I'm a believer in Christ. I read every day. When I go walk into financial aid or go to the cafeteria, I try to say hi to everybody and be a good person. And so I want my players to know that coach is walking what he's telling us to do. He's not just sitting in his office and getting on to us when he comes into practice. And so, I try to be a reflection for our players and someone they can lead, they can look up to on a daily basis.
I think that authenticity thing that you said is perfect. You nailed it. No, I know that I am. I'm pretty corny, I think. I think my guys, a lot of the things that I say and do, they tolerate it, but they know, I think, that my heart's in the right place. But I think authenticity is inspiring, and your faith enables you to do that. What are some of the challenges at times with trying to show up as your authentic self?
Yeah, everyone has bad days, and so it doesn't matter who you are, what profession you're in, you're going to have a bad day. Someone's going to upset you, a player. And so, if I ever get in a bad mood or something like that, I try to just stand up and start walking around because I know I'm going to say hi to someone and I'm going to put a smile on my face. And so that's always a quick reminder. And I invite my players always to come to my office, come say hi. So they're typically in here and I enjoy when they come in here and stuff like that. So I always enjoy seeing them. It always cheers me up.
I was trying to think of something that either I've done or borrowed over the years that's helped me be that kind of person that you're talking about. After a loss, after a win, not losing my mind. And I've heard it from a lot of great coaches, Paul Mills, Scott Drew, that they rarely talk to them after the game or about anything specific. They tell the guys that they're going to wait to watch the film and then have a really good plan. Like, I think that's a good way. One of the things that I borrowed that I think it's top 5 for sure, maybe even top 3 for me, is celebrations after a game, win or lose. Easy after a win. And we get together because I don't do post game talks. We get together at half court and we quickly, hey, what are some things that you saw? What are some celebrations? And after a win, it's Johnny was doing this. And then, oh, we're feeling so good. And then, all right, guys, hey, make sure you get some pizza, say hello to your families, and then here's practice tomorrow. We break less than 3 minutes. But coach, after a loss, that's when I think that's the culture check, right? That moment of, but here's what I found from that is I may be really mad and upset about some things that I think I saw, and I might not even be thinking or seeing that I saw the right thing. But I asked for celebrations. And the very first couple games, it's awkward and they don't really want to do it. And some guys don't talk, and that's okay. But sure enough, 2 or 3 guys start going. And then I start to hear what they saw that was good. And I don't know what it does. It changes my mindset to start thinking about more positive things that we did throughout the game. By the end of that little celebration talk, that is counter to what you think you should do after a loss. Like, you got to hammer them. You got to make sure they care enough, like all of those feelings. I think they got to hate losing, but I think that talking about celebrations, it gets them excited to show up the next day and figure it out. Because what do we want at the end of the day, coach? We want them to come back.
I love the meeting at the middle, and celebrating and keeping it very short because, early on, I would get in the locker room like, man, they rebound, all this stuff. And then I
For the
watched the
next
film
30
and
minutes, I'm going to tell you everything that you did wrong, and you're going to sit there, keep going. Yeah.
and then I watch film and I'm just like, I didn't even mean, like, half the stuff I said wasn't even true. It's so I agree. It's awkward. I try to do the same thing. Like, might touch on 2 or 3 things. I'll get out of there. But the first couple times, like, the players almost want you to like chew them out. And it's like, it's awkward for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I try to get out quickly, like you said.
And that's the reprogramming, though, I think that we have to do it because they're used to the chew out. And like myself, I played for Dave Bliss for 3 years, and his style of communication and discipline was harsh. He was Bobby Knight's first assistant coach and acted like it. And so there was no celebrating and nothing. But I learned to like that and respond. And I thought if I'm tough enough to take this and my teammates aren't, then I can steal some time from them, some playing time. And then Coach Drew came in playing jock jams and smiling and hugging us and giving high fives and not cussing and all these things. And it was so foreign to me. I thought this isn't what serious programs do. And I felt that way for a long time. And then working with PGC, light bulb moment of Coach Drew is right. This is a better way. I don't want to regret things that I say after that post game speech that were wrong because I haven't watched the film. And you nailed it, man. I think watching the film, I'm most of the time, what I thought is the exact opposite. Good, sometimes good, sometimes bad, but at least I can come back and I know I didn't say anything in that meeting that I'll regret.
Yeah, my assistant said it this week in practice too. We had a player from UConn last year, and he always said, Dan Hurley would say, there's no parades and no funerals. Never get too high. And I mean, it's never as bad as you think it is. Yeah. And
I would have
that
thought
was a powerful.
the opposite. It's funny because watching him, I would have thought that dude's gonna like rip them apart when they get in there. That's pretty cool to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. So he would always tell our guys, and after we won a big game or something, he would mention that, and my assistant would he would have to remind him that too. And I have an amazing assistant. He's from the Dallas-Fort Worth area as well, and he's amazing. He does a really good job. So very lucky to have him.
What made you shift from being the coach that has the 30-minute post game where we're going to fix everything that night when they're upset and hungry to a little bit shorter and wanting to get to the film? What made you shift?
So I was an assistant under 3 coaches, and they all were very different. One was, it's my way, and you're not going to tie your shoe differently than what I say. Another one just wanted to have, very upbeat, a lot of positivity, but there was a lot of negative that came with that. We had people late. We had, other situations. And then another one tried to find a balance, and he did such a good job, amazing leader. And when I started my coaching career, I found very early on that I was being the head coach. I didn't enjoy the leadership style I was around. And so it was a huge gut punch and a huge reflection, to me. And I didn't have the best relationships. I only had good relationships with our good players. And you want to have good relationships with all your players. It doesn't matter if he's not playing a minute. And so it was a huge wake-up call to me.
And 2 things right there. I mean, great nuggets and making me think a lot. My first year at Naaman Forest, and this was 19 years ago, I called my high school coach, Tommy Thomas from the Colony, Texas, at the Colony High School and said, hey, coach, what's one thing that I need to do that you wish you would have done? And he said, I wish I would have spent more time with players 9, 10, 11, 12, because the players 1 through 7 or 8, they dominate especially your best players sometimes. They dominate practice, the attention. I'm fighting that right now. I got to make sure that I'm coaching all of them, giving all of them things they can do better, not just focusing on 1 or 2. So that was one thing, and you nailed it. The second thing was, it kind of goes back to that question that you asked, which I think is a good one. How do you get your teammates to love you? Another one for us is, would you want to play for yourself? So, coach, like at this point where you're at, would you want to play for you?
I would right now. There's still some stuff I need to get better at, but early on in my career, I don't know if I would have wanted to play for me. I very hard-headed, and I wasn't the best teacher. And that, thinking back on it, I didn't do my players a justice on who I was as a head coach, and I thought I had it all figured out. We had a good season, and that's probably one of my biggest regrets is having a really good team, having a good season, but knowing we could have had an amazing season and could have probably won conference and could have done stuff like that. And so, yeah, that stuff's enjoyable to think about where we're at right now as coaches, but sometimes those teams are the ones you wish you had back.
No doubt. I think in all of our past in our mistakes and our failures, there's a wake, unfortunately, of players that we just feel like we got to apologize to. And sometimes I think that's not a bad exercise. If you get to be around older players, you're sitting around talking. Some of those I'm sorry's for the way that I said this or how I focused on the wrong thing at times. I've seen former players almost a little bit of like a sigh of relief, appreciation for saying that. And I just think that it is a good sign of growth when we do realize that, like you said.
Yeah, it's I think looking back on it too, I wish I was building relationships like I was now with my players, but I'm thankful
Yeah.
I'm doing it now for sure.
Man, you talked about those 3 coaches. That's almost kind of like a story. You could write a book on some fictional story about the 3 coaches. If you do this, I want a copy. But the first coach is it's high standards, his way, no fun, no positivity. And that's there's a way to do it, and you could probably achieve some success there. But there's the other coach that was all fun and positivity, but a lack of standards. And you talked about some of the pitfalls that come from that. And probably players loved him, but then maybe didn't achieve the success individually or as a team that they could have. And then there's that third category that we're trying to balance having standards and discipline, but still fun and positivity. That's the world I'm trying to live in, and it's a challenge. Charlie Melton from Baylor talked about not letting the old man in. And he was talking about it more physically, like stay physically fit and stay in shape, keep the old man out. I think the old man in coaching is real too. Because the old man in me, like, this isn't serious right now, what we're doing. And, when we're playing the now be Panther games in the spring, which they're all 1-minute games that you would play like at a party but with a basketball thing to it. And they're wearing costumes that they wanted to choose. It's so much fun, but the old man in me is like, "What are we doing here?" And even though I chose this, how do you live, coach, in that third category? What's that balance like?
Yeah, I'm sure who the coach. His name's Delton Dill. Do you know Coach Dill?
Love
He's
Coach Deal.
he's amazing, and so
Yes,
that's the third coach. I
that's the
definitely
third
want to.
guy. I
Yeah.
thought it was. I thought it was, but yeah.
Man, he was amazing, and everybody enjoyed being around him. But he still had his discipline to him that players didn't think was annoying. They knew it came from a good place. Even in one of our talks with our players, I asked him like, our players at your high school or previous college, like, what's something you guys wish we did? And 2 of them told me, I wish we could do like one fun game like every other day or maybe once a week. And they were talking about like knockout, and we do knockout, and the old man coming out's like, I'm wasting 15, 20 minutes of my practice time right now, and they're having
Taking them
so
shell
much
drill
fun.
right now, just so you guys know. Like, man.
So, but they just had a blast, and they've got to enjoy it.
Like, I feel like everything that you're saying is taking us down a really cool, rabbit hole or idea. And that's another thing is asking players for feedback. And especially right when they graduate. I think I got this from Mark Cassio, but he said you need to ask your players 3 things. What did they love that we did? What should we keep doing? Or no, what's something they loved and we should keep doing? What's something they wish that we did that we didn't do? And then what's something we shouldn't do anymore? And some of those is just, okay, that's just a kid thing. Like that's not serious. That's okay. We're sticking with that. But others like post-game handshake or warm-up handshakes. I never let our guys at Faith do that.
Yeah.
And one player was like, I really wish we could have. And then, so there's that question in me of why did I not want that? Did it really affect winning? Either way, what was the purpose? And I think all of it was my idea of what traditional serious basketball is and what serious teams do. And that's not us. But coach, that's completely against Fun Fridays where we listen to jock jams and play shooting games all day. So but just like you said, the great opportunity to learn by asking our players.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to steal some of the games from you because I need some more because they loved it.
I'm telling you, I think with shooting, I don't know the percentage for sure, but it's 90% of it should be games and then 10% maybe volume, and really probably the volume on their own. But I think like
Yeah.
if I was to ask a coach, like, tell me what shooting. Oh, we shoot a ton. First, we start with, we shoot from 5 spots at 15 feet, and then we move to 5, and then we go on to this. I'm like, oh, okay. So it was volume, and volume is good. They need that. But then they're missing the big component to me of making shots in games is practicing fast and practicing with pressure. Well, in 5-spot shooting with no time limit or anything, they're missing those components. So what gets you there is games. And it's like the most fun thing you can do. So you talked about buy-in at the very beginning. Shooting games, in my opinion, should be the majority of all the shooting that we do. And the beauty is, if I wanted to, wouldn't even have to do the same game every day for a month, because there's so many great ones out there that we can just keep learning.
Yeah, man, I love everything you're saying because I went to a practice last year and I'm sitting there and I'm not trying to critique anybody because I don't have it figured out, but I'm sitting there watching a practice and for the first hour we're just watching a skill development session in your practice, and we're not learning, we're not reading closeouts, we're not reading any type of situation that's in games, and I agree with you. That's something I did very early on. Probably too many just monotonous little shooting drills. But now, like, everything has a defender. 2v1 shooting. I stole that from Missouri. And,
Yeah.
we'll do small-sided games where they're at a disadvantage and reading stuff. And so I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, force them to make inner rows. I mean, the moment that you say, okay, hey, this game, blackjack's one of my favorite games. It's 7 spots. You've got to make 3 in a row at 7 spots. It's blackjack, and you have 3 minutes to do it. So you got your time component right there. They feel that pressure going on. And then you got the component of inner rows. I think we all want shooters that have courage. And the way to have courage is to get them in those positions where they feel fear of, I need to make this, until that becomes normal, or they learn to love that feeling. But I don't know how else I love the 2-on-1 stuff. I love when there's closeouts and they have to decide whether they shoot it or move it and get
Right.
rid of it fast at that 0.5. That's good stuff too.
Yeah. I went to Missouri's practice and the guys were having so much fun reading closeouts and making extra passes. I was like, there's no way I can make it look like this, but there's just something about players reading closeouts and wanting to help get their teammates a good shot and stuff. And I definitely think there's definitely times before stuff like that, whether it's like in transition drills or we're getting paint. We do a lot of like paint touch kickouts, one mores where there's not a defender, but it's working on our offense. So everything's kind of like a buildup. And so I think you have to have situations like that.
Great nugget too about going to other practices and different levels too. Being back in Waco, one fun part of this is with Coach Drew still being there, getting to go to his practices more, or not more, just for the first time really since I was there. And so I went to one probably about a month and a half ago. It was during the summer. And first of all, probably how you felt, blown away by the organization, the 7 assistant coaches with the 8 GAs and managers but they were a machine. And then Coach Drew walked around. I wrote down in my notes, he's the CEO of the practice. Like, they've got dudes working and he's pipes in something there, drops a nugget there, brings them together, sends them back out. And just, it was awesome to watch. But I felt like you just said, I was like, how do I do that? I have 2 full-time assistants, blessed to have those. Like the way you talked about your guys, man, I feel that way about the 2 guys at Midway. But that's the fun, right? Is how do I take parts of this and how do I adapt it and work it to what works in your gym?
Definitely. I obviously everyone wished they had another assistant or they had 2 more basketball goals they could shoot more on,
Yeah.
or another practice gym we could just go shoot in. And so I definitely think it's all trial and error. But the organization side of getting schedules, knowing when players have off times and stuff like that, I think that's something that is always challenging. But like you said, it just takes 30 minutes to figure out what we need to do to hopefully get the most out of our time.
Man, I was going to ask you how much time you typically spend with that. And I think that's a good way to get into, I'd love to know kind of your daily habits with all the things that you have to do as a college coach. What does each day look like and some of those habits that set you up for success?
Right. First, I have a 1-year-old. Me and my wife have a 1-year-old. So I make sure that the house is ready. She's set up for success for the day too. I typically cook the family breakfast and we'll sit down and
Oh,
eat.
nice. Yeah.
And so I try to do that on a daily basis. It doesn't happen every day, but I try to. And then, every day is 9 a.m. Coach Zeke is working these players out. Coach Cochran's talking to them. 10 a.m. I have a break. 11 a.m. Mondays, I'm teaching classes. And so, like, they have study hall at 11 a.m. And so the blocks are in there, and us coaches know it too. When they have classes, we make a master schedule. And so they'll come ask, hey, can I watch film for 30 minutes and stuff like that too? So we're pretty organized with the master schedule and when they have workouts and stuff like that. And so that's kind of who I am as a person. I don't like stuff just on the fly, and I can't operate like that.
What do you teach?
I have a master's in math, so I do like some college algebra, and I only teach one class here at Fort Scott. I was teaching like 6 classes every semester, and so it was a lot. Luckily, I had a lot of players in my class, so that's time I could talk to them, see how they were doing. But
How many
just math.
college coaches you hear out there teaching 6 math classes?
Well, at Fort Scott, it was like the freshman orientation. It was
Okay.
math. It was a weightlifting class, and it was like an online one.
But still, it's a place where you got to be, and it's time that you can't spend on your team. So you actually, I mean, you get it. You get what that daily grind is like of when there's things I got to do, but I have to have my butt somewhere and I have to do a good job there too. And when I got the job at Midway, meeting with my principal, she said, just a reminder that the teaching part is 90% of what you get paid for. In the back of my head, I was like, oh, man, I don't think I was looking at it that way personally, but it's a good reminder.
That's funny.
I love to hear this because you talked about those 3 coaches, but you've also listened to, been around a lot. What would 3 characteristics be of a great coach? And I know there's way more than just 3, but if you could bring it to 3.
First, obviously, is loving. Most of the ones that I've worked for, they were loving and loved in their own way, and so I think that's first and foremost that all those guys did. 2, all of them were very faith-based, and so we did stuff as a team, went to church, stuff like that, and so it was a really good learning point through the daily grind and the craziness of practice and study hall and weights and recruiting and all that he has to be your focal point, and that's who you have to lean on. And then third is just relationships. All 3 of them had good relationships with community members, faculty members, most of them had good relationships with players. And so that's the 3 that all of them that I worked for and who if I listen to a coach, I mean, it's pretty easy to know why a coach is successful. And those 3 things typically stick out consistently with coaches.
Great list of 3. I appreciate the faith-based part with players that you have that don't have that background. I've always wondered about with Coach Drew. Like, he's not just recruiting believers. I wish you could win a national championship like that. But even on that team, they had a lot of guys get baptized that year. And so he's always found a really good way of obviously bringing different people, beliefs together. How do you live the way that you live and maybe introduce some of those ideas, but you have players with very different backgrounds and maybe no history of religion at all?
Yeah, and it's hard because recently I've had quite a few Muslim players, and so I'll talk about it like when we have meetings and stuff, like we're going to pray before practice, and I'll always invite our players to church with me and stuff like that. And so I try to obviously show them my background and stuff, but I also will drop stuff like that because I have had conversations where people were contemplating changing religions and going to Christianity and stuff like that. And so I don't try to be too pushy. I just try to let it fruitfully happen. And I think that's the best way to do it.
I appreciate that. I think that's helpful for a lot of coaches at public schools where it's kind of easy at Faith. We all felt like they were coming in with the same way. I was mandated to infuse Christ in everything we were doing every day. And now being at Midway, I want to be more delicate with it. And I like the idea of, it's kind of what Coach Tang talked about. He's like, I don't go around beating people over the head with my Bible. I just want my life to show it. And it sounds like that's kind of what you're doing.
Yeah. And if they ever want to talk about it, I think that's kind of the door that you're kind of waiting for. I think anybody
Yeah.
that's not wanting to beat them over the head with verses or, anything on a daily basis, I think anyone's just kind of waiting for that. And I graduated from Fort Worth Christian. So I originally went to a public school and it was just completely different. And I loved being at Fort Worth Christian and having everybody like-minded and just able to talk to anybody about any situation, whether that's, anything.
When did you graduate from Fort Worth Christian?
I was there 2012, so I don't know if you
Oh,
remember Chad Rycook, but he played at Baylor
the
for
tall
Coach Drew.
blonde-haired guy. Yeah,
7-footer,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, man, we played Fort Worth Christian when I was at McKinney in a tournament, and they had the big guy, and one of our guards, AJ Mutri, had like 28 in the first half of that game. But it was a good game. Like those guys played us really tough, and I wondered if you were there. That's kind of crazy.
Think that might have been the year before I got there. I
Okay.
remember them talking about that game and talking about the best player they ever played against, and now that thinking about it, I remember
Yeah.
McKinney coming up and stuff.
A small world. Had some great battles against Fort Worth Christian over the years. They had a few different coaches there. I think 4 while I was during my 12 years. And so, but all that rivalry was really fun. I had a question. This made me think of when you were talking about how delicate it is and how you try to be respectful, being a believer and letting your players know that you are. How do you handle and when I say pressure, I don't say it in a negative way, but how do you handle the bar that you've set for yourself? Because I feel like it's one of my favorite DC Talk. And do you know who DC Talk is? Back in the
No,
90s. I'm so old. DC Talk in the 90s was a great Christian band. And anyway, in one of their songs, the guy says, I'm going to butcher this, but he says, what people struggle with is somebody that acknowledge Christ with their lips, but denies him with their lifestyle. And then he says, this is what an unbelieving world simply finds unbelievable. I think the moment that you open yourself up to, this is who I am, this is what I believe as a coach, golly, that bar is high because you can't mess up with what you say. You can't damage the mission, even though we're not going to be perfect. How do you handle that?
Yeah, our pastor talked about this a couple months ago, and he talked about it's not just your actions in front of people, it's also your thoughts and what you're doing at home when you're, laying in bed. And so it goes so many different directions that one, you're not only trying people that are saying I'm a good person, you're not just trying to do in front of other people. It's your thoughts and your daily habits. And so that really stuck with me, that you could be listening or watching a video that just pops up you shouldn't be listening to because people are cussing on it and doing stuff they shouldn't be. And, is that really transparent on what we want to be and stuff like that? And so I think that was a huge change for me is, not only doing it in front of people, doing it for myself, doing it for my family, but also my mindset and my thoughts.
I appreciate you sharing that. That's good. How do you build your confidence in players, especially when, like what you talked about earlier, you have so many guys that, yeah, they're happy to be there and play for you, but they all have a motive of wanting to go somewhere else. This isn't their last stop. So when their confidence starts to rise and fall and it dips, what do you do to help them in that moment?
Yeah, bringing them in and watching good clips. It doesn't matter if it was a month ago. We had a freshman. His first week of practice was unbelievable, and then the next couple weeks, college kind of hit in, and he's not the same player. And I told our assistant, go watch film with him from the first 2 days of practice. And he came up to me and was like, "Coach, I understand now." That plus, the analytics side too. We have a growth chart of where players were at, player efficiency wise. And so I will either show them this is where you're at the first week, you've gone up the second week, and I highlighted that on Monday. These 7 players went up drastically, and it doesn't matter if their efficiency was 0.5. If they went up to a 0.7, that's a huge victory.
Any
Uh,
increase. Yeah.
and so that's little stuff. I think you always got to find little ways, whether it is analytics, whether it is film, whether it's come talk to me during practice. That's what I've been talking about for the last week. And now you're doing a better job. And we had a 7-footer that we just did that after our scrimmage. Like he was messing up, but after the scrimmage, he made 2 or 3 big plays that I was telling him he has to fix. And so he's like, all right, I see it, coach. And so there's different ways for everybody, but I try to find a way to connect with everybody.
I love that. I think confidence comes from their preparation and then what they think about. And so if you know that that player has prepared, he's put in the time, but confidence is low, then it's got to be what he's thinking about. And most likely it's like that Trafalgar Square out in, I guess it's England or London. I'm not sure where that is, but years ago they had thousands and thousands of pigeons that would come to the square and people would feed them. And it was like this big tourist attraction. And then they outlawed feeding the pigeons where people would get a ticket if they did that. And within a week or two, no birds were in sight at all because nobody was feeding these pigeons because they were pooping all over the place. And so the idea is like our players are feeding the negative thoughts about themselves and their game. There's poop all over their brain, right? Like they're struggling. And so we got to remind them. I think instead of showing them where they're messing up and trying to teach them from that, like you said, remind them of the good things that they've done so that they start to think about those things. And then the preparation clicks in. I think that's how we get them back on track. That's a good nugget.
Yeah. Like you said early on in the podcast, it stuck with me too, is when I was at Northwestern State in the Southland, our coach before games would always want like me to make highlight tapes of how, if they were doing stuff good the past game, and it would just be on a loop. And so he was trying to build that confidence and I don't know who that connected with. I don't know if that made a player play good before, but I'm sure it helped someone. And so, there's, like you said, I love that tidbit, and it goes a far way with them.
This has been awesome. Before I let you go, I want to go over the speed round. These are going to be quick questions. The first thing that pops in your head, just blurt it right out. And that way we all will know you even better.
Let's do it.
Ready? You've heard these.
I've heard a few for sure. I'm trying to not just, remember so I can start thinking about what I want to answer.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Chocolate chip cookie dough.
Greatest shooter of all time?
Dirk Nowitzki.
Nice. Good, Dallas. There you go.
I have
Do you
to.
stand? Yeah. Do you stand up or sit down more during games?
I'm always standing. There's very few times I sit.
Top 3 dinner guests, any time period.
Top 3 dinner guests, like
dinner guests.
family or like celebrity or
Any time period, anybody.
Okay. Obviously, Jesus, I would love to ask him some
Let's
questions.
take him off the table. Let's take him off the table. Yeah.
Adam Sandler. Love Adam Sandler.
Okay.
Yeah. Favorite. Michael Jordan, favorite athlete. And then I would probably go with Chris Beard. Yeah. Being a huge Texas Tech fan, I followed him very early on, and I've coached at some same schools as him. So would love to pick his brain.
Have you been able to have any interaction with him?
Yeah, we've texted and stuff, but I've never, he's always been pretty busy, especially when I'm done with season. He's typically in March Madness and stuff like that, or at the Final Four, they're always doing topics and speeches and stuff like that. So
yeah, he seems to be pretty incredible. I've never been able to meet him or anything, but I had a question for you. Adam Sandler, I'm a fan of some of his movies. Thoughts on Happy Gilmore 2 and Hustle, the basketball movie did. What are your thoughts?
I'm going to be biased because he's my favorite actor, but I love both of them. I thought they did a great job with Happy Gilmore 2, like old actors with some of the same antics they did. I thought it was brilliant. Some of my other friends were like, this movie's horrible. And I'm like, y'all don't know what y'all are talking about. Y'all need to rewatch it. And then Hustle was awesome. I just thought this whole storyline of, how basketball has changed and them being able to get all the NBA players and coaches in there, I thought they did an amazing job.
The best basketball in a movie ever because they all really could play. Like you watch, I love Glory Road. I think it's a great movie. The story's incredible. I don't think they were throwing oops in the 50s and 60s. Maybe if they were, show me the film. And then in Hustle, one of the reasons I like it is Michael Lancaster from I'm Possible is in that. And I'm a big Michael Lancaster. The moment I say that, some people roll their eyes because, it's cones, it's med balls, it's foam rollers. To me, it's fun and it's game connectors that help kids a lot, but he's in that, which is huge.
I don't know if I'm sure you have seen this or have heard of it. My favorite movie though is Big Daddy.
Oh,
That
yeah.
love it.
Classic.
I'm like crying laughing every time I watch it.
Scuba Steve.
Yeah.
That's a good one. On to movies, best basketball movie of all time.
I love Coach Carter. I can watch Coach Carter any day, any week.
Yeah.
I love Glory Road too and Hustle and stuff like that. Coach Carter, I don't know what it is, but there's a lot of good stuff from, the struggles on a daily basis they deal with and them fighting to be a relevant team and then what they're able to do. It's such a good storyline. I love it.
Yeah. One of the most powerful moments of that is the player that was in trouble early on and had to do 1,000 push-ups and 1,000. That's a question mark, but 1,000 push-ups, 1,000 suicides, right?
Yeah.
But he had to do all that. He finally gets back on, and then there's that conflict of he's done all that. They're winning now, and Coach Carter still isn't, or he's holding them accountable about the classroom. And it was a great reminder to me of we can't make it be all about basketball. Like there has to be, it was with academics or an overarching theme to what we're doing. Because if it's just basketball, then that part of that story, they winning, they just go off and win, but maybe all the kids fail and they don't graduate. Like that's a big part. Do players sit the rest of the first half if they get 2 fouls?
No, depends on how they're playing, obviously, but not
Yeah.
always.
Nice. Favorite holiday?
Thanksgiving. I love being with all my family and stuff like that.
And do you cook during Thanksgiving?
My grandmother is Italian, and so she can cook, but she ain't gonna let anybody else cook either. The food's amazing. She's the best cook I've been around.
Besides the Bible, what book would you give someone?
I love John Wooden's, I forget, it's like his Pillar book, and
Yeah.
it has his other players come in there and they almost get a chapter each. It's his son too. I mean, I've learned more from that book than a lot of books I've read. That book's
Yeah.
amazing. And
Man, that is a
I
good
love,
one. Keep going.
and then I love Green Light from
Yeah.
Matthew McConaughey. I love that book.
It's crazy how he decided to make these major life decisions when he was possibly on drugs and in hallucinating or dreaming. He made major life decisions during those times.
Yeah.
Green Light, I guess. Yeah. It was a really good book. Favorite place to travel?
I love Mexico. I've been there on cruises and I've been to Cabo a couple times. People are so nice and love the beach. I've had a great time every time, just, enjoying the people and the scenery and everything. It's been fun.
Last one, Coach. In basketball as a player, who's the GOAT?
Definitely Michael Jordan. I don't think there's a conversation.
Hey, that's right. Coach, this was awesome, man. You and I have not had much interactions at all, but that's what I love about the game is two people can get together and just talk about players and standards and how to try to get better at this. And thank you so much for giving up your time. This was great.
Yes, sir. I really enjoyed it, and I would love to come to a game because I know I will be able to learn a lot of stuff. I have a lot of respect for you, and thank you for asking me to be on.
And I appreciate that. We're pretty simple, and so I hope I wouldn't disappoint you, but I would love to have you out to Midway anytime that you can. And if anybody had questions about, because we didn't get into too much of the X's and O's and stuff, but more questions about your culture or what you do, what's a good way for them to get in contact with you?
I'm open. You can text or call me. My cell phone's 817-312-7353. If you have any questions about anything, I'm an open book. So
Love that, man. Well, Coach, good luck this year and definitely be rooting for you. Thanks again.
yes, sir. Hope you have a good week, and thank you again.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.